Welcome back to Crossroads of Cognizance, here where we talk to you every week about spiritual trends, the highs and lows of the week, and what we're seeing as practitioners. If this is your first time joining us, be sure to hit that like and subscribe button. We're here to build community, and we're just going to do it the best way we know how. So on this side of the East Coast, I am Dahlia Rose, and with me,
Oh, hi. I'm Katrina Rasbold. I'm on the West Coast, and I'm the co-owner of Crossroads Metaphysical Store in Shingle Springs, California. You can find us at www.crossroadsoccult.com. That's where we are. And I am just so excited to be here today with Dahlia. It's always such a rush. Every Thursday, I look forward to it. I look forward to our pre-show when we're all excited. I mean, if you saw us, folks, you would just think that we were just darling because we both come in like, what happened with you? What happened with you? And what's
right?
funny about that is we talk all through the week. It's not like we only see each other on Thursdays. But
Truly.
we get wired for this. We're excited to talk to the community that's building. And so Dahlia actually was the springboard for this week's conversation. So Dahlia is Crystal Cognizance
Yes.
in
Find us at
Woodbridge,
crystalcognizance.com.
I'm excited for her to really launch this conversation because it's a fun one. And we've been talking about a lot of really heavy stuff lately. And this is a fun conversation where we get to make fun of people and, and feel better about ourselves. And so when I say make fun, I mean like take some things lighter than what we normally would. So I'm excited for this conversation. This is going to be fun.
Absolutely. The spiritual journey doesn't have to be so serious, you know. And like Katrina said, a bit of a lighter topic this week. So I know as far as trends that I was seeing on the East Coast, there was a combination of things. It was everything from raising your vibration and when you step back and you hear those kinds of phrases, you kind of go, oh, I really need to do this. And then you go, wait a minute, what does that actually mean? Like you should be asking that question with any of the spiritual phrases that you see on social media, on YouTube. Ask that question. And then we even had some instances where people ran into what I would call spiritual narcissism. Now, I know that word is heavily used, and there is a technical, literal, definition for it, and then we kind of just throw it around. But let's start with the vibration piece. So when I first got into spirituality, and I'm sure like many others, there was this need for like validation, right? We get in and we're like, okay, I've been doing it wrong this long, and now I'm gonna step in and really make the most of this. And then if you came up through religion, it was like an earning based system, so naturally it translates. So what I was seeing a lot of was, like I mentioned, even last week, people sort of getting into this space of something must be wrong with me and I need to do something about it. But also some like weird trends. I saw this video where this guy was like, here's how to raise your vibration. And I said, okay, I'll take a look. And one of them was take a cold shower. And I was like, it'll wake you up, but what does it do to your vibration to take a cold shower? Katrina, have you ever heard of using a cold shower to raise your vibration?
There's only one thing I ever heard using a cold shower for.
I have to say the same.
It's not a pleasurable experience, and to me, taking a cold shower would be kind of like the priests that beat themselves on the back, and wear the cilice and that kind of thing. That would be torture. I could see it being invigorating, I could, like you
Okay.
said, waking you up, maybe bringing you back into your body,
Okay.
because boy, are you going to jump in. Uh, I'm back. I'm here. But I've got to be honest, would not be, and even in my top 10 of the ways to raise your own vibration. There are so many ways that you can. And I do think being present and engaged and all there is, is certainly advantageous to raising your vibration. People think that to raise your vibration, you should be way up in the ethereals and astral traveling. And that's not my experience at all. Mine is that you need to
Not
be
mine either.
really present, plugged into what's happening right now, the people around you, the experience you're having in that moment. That's the high vibration. It's not going off into the ethers. You can do that when you're dead. I mean, you're going to have lots of time to be up in the ethers. And real living and real vibrating and real holiness is when you are right there with a person and you can
Right.
feel that. The best place to feel that's on a blind date. If you're on a blind date and they're on their phone or they're distracted and you have to keep getting their attention and pulling them back, there's no vibration, there's no chemistry there. But if you're sitting and you're looking at each other and you're kind of mesmerized by what each other's saying and you're excited about what, the topic, oh, you're finding out this about them. That's so cool. I do that too. And the food is just on point, and there's this whole sensory thing going on. Then you're vibing high and you're engaged, not when you're gone.
Right. And
Thank you
what
for
I
coming to my
notice in
TED
those
Talk.
moments, what I tend to notice in the example that you gave is that there's a density to that moment. I know when folks are present, they finally, we've had a session and they sit up from the table they're laying on, they actually feel heavier. And they're like, I feel this physical heaviness. And I'm like, that's because you are completely here. During my sessions, it's one of the things that I do is I pull you from every place you've projected yourself. I try to pull you back into the moment. And there are so many people that are not used to that sense and that depth. And I think that, like Katrina's example, a great example is when you're on a date and you're trying to figure this person out and wanting to represent yourself well, you are absolutely present. Like, oh, that do I have corn in my teeth? Is this gonna make me do this or that I want to save for the third date? You're
Yep,
very
yep.
present.
Pace it out. Yeah.
Yep.
And
So
that shows up when we do an egg cleansing on somebody. If you're not fully in your body, that's going to show up in the egg. It shows up like a little blister on the yolk or possibly a completely fragmented yolk. And that means that,
mhm.
honestly, that's trauma based. That
Yep.
means that you had a trauma that was so extreme, you left your body or part of you left your body and couldn't get back. So if you're on a date and you're checking out, that's a really good sign that you don't need to be there.
Right. Maybe save it
That's
for
called
another
trauma.
time.
Yeah.
Now, Heidi, if you're still on the broadcast, you mentioned something very interesting. So you said that the shower is meant to lower your vibration. I'm wondering if that's a joke or if you have some insight. So definitely drop that in
I
the
think Heidi
comments if
was
you can.
joking. Yeah.
Okay, because I was like,
Yeah.
okay, well maybe if you're so completely disengaged from yourself and you need to bring yourself down, and that's how you get present. You throw yourself in the shower. It's a joke. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
Dahlia took it too
Vibrations.
seriously. Got it.
Yeah. Yeah. But
um,
it is true. What you're saying, get back in that body. And a warm shower isn't going to do it. Warm shower will make you disconnect
yep.
because it's so blissful. You just are gone.
Absolutely. Water hits that
Yeah.
vagus nerve and you're just like, Another interesting tip I saw out there was meditating at 11:11. Now, I am all for angel numbers. I love my little shout outs, my 444s and my 222s, and yes, okay, you're on the right path. And but I'm confused cuz like meditation in general is good. I am very confused by all the rules, you know, like if you miss 11:11 and you
Mhm.
meditate at 11:12, like how have you
Oh,
shifted?
very bad. You know, one of the things that I've been all about since I was just a baby witch and I first started this path is all of the rules. And I'm a Virgo. I love structure. Structure is wonderful. Rules are great. Thank you. But let's not overcomplicate something that at truth has nothing to do with us, because magic and meditation and enlightenment existed before we were born. It'll exist after we're long gone and long dead. It's a symphony we step into and play our little part and leave. So, as far as all the rules, just come in, do your best. Don't sit there and go, well, it's 11:13. So much for meditating today. You know, it's ridiculous. It's ridiculous. Now, if you meditate at 11:11 on November 11th, I'm going to get real excited because that's great. But if
Dedication.
you know, don't make it so hard to be sacred. You already are sacred.
Absolutely, absolutely. I get it if maybe there's something like oh well, it's hard for me to start a habit. And so you choose 11:11 and you want to do that route, but understand that you are purely dealing with habit and not
Yes.
something that's going to jettison you into walking on water or whatever it is your goal is. Um, you know, I had taken this course, it was soul realignment, and it had some things in there I didn't agree with, but one thing that I found interesting was the concept of negativity in this particular course was not necessarily bad, but what's out of alignment. And I feel like some of these concepts that sort of take us out of, you know, have you done this today? Have you done that today? But have no real meaning or sense can actually end up lowering our vibration, putting us out of alignment, which by the very nature of those things would be negative. And, you know, so if somebody says, your energy's in a negative place, it's worth saying, okay, well, it's out of balance, it's out of alignment. I don't
Mm-hmm.
need to go and hop in the shower and get cold.
At 11:11.
Right. But maybe, put down the sugar for a couple of days. I'm on that track right now.
Me too. You and I are just going to buy one life and share it next time, okay? Because I have been totally and completely sugar free for today's day 12.
Oh, okay. Today's day one for
Yeah.
me.
Yeah. No. And we're talking even no fruits, not
Oh,
no natural sugar. I don't do any breads, starches, pastas, anything. And so, yeah, I'm completely right now devoid of any kind of sugar. So interesting you mentioned that. I like what you said about alignment. And if we were to take alignment and put it up against enlightenment, I would take alignment any day of the week.
absolutely.
And when you're talking about habits like you were, there's so often people try to instill good habits in themselves and they fail, and good habits and they fail, and they good habits and they fail. And right now it's January 27th, and I will guarantee you my gym is a lot roomier than it was 3 weeks ago. Okay. So there's lots of habits people try to cultivate themselves and they fail and they feel terrible about that. When really, I believe it happens when it's time for it to happen, when that perfect mental construct and spiritual construct comes into alignment. Um, I think that that's when we're able to be successful with the habits we want to cultivate. And that's about alignment. So we can't catch that brass ring until it comes around, no matter how hard we run for it. So it's just a matter of timing. So if you're trying all these things and failing, it doesn't mean you're not sacred. It doesn't mean you're not vibing high. It means it wasn't time yet. Now that doesn't mean you sit there and create situations destroying your health saying,
Right.
well, it just isn't time yet because I still want a burrito. Yeah.
Katrina said. Absolutely. And, it can be everything from dietary to spiritual to other concepts. I mean, and this goes along with readings as well. I don't know if your experience, Katrina, but it seems like there are some things that come out in readings that are timeless. So, I've done healing sessions where I'm like, oh, I can see in the solar plexus of this person that they're going to write a book and do all these magnificent things. But there are so many things that come before that. There are so many obstacles in the way, and it may be children. It may be the household that they live in, or that they need to take one more step in one direction to gain an experience that really solidifies that book in place. But we will say, oh my gosh, now that I know, it must happen now. And time, I've said it before, time doesn't exist. Your guides don't care about
Yeah.
time. And
Well,
it's
and
very frustrating.
we see this in our people that we try to help too, with the not creation of habits, but the breaking of habits.
Oh
Of
yes.
I have this addiction or I have this compulsion and I really just needed to stop. When we stop and think about it and okay, well, stop, you know. But we
Yeah.
have all these organizations and counseling facilities and such set up for, oh, you're an alcoholic, just don't take a drink. You're a gambling addict, don't go to the casino. There's these simple fixes, and yet it has to be the right time for that to be effective. My
Yes.
ex-husband just did something very interesting. When we were together for 17 years and knew each other for 20 before we finally divorced once and for all. But he always struggled with reading. He loves reading, but reading is hard for him because he doesn't read a sentence at a time. He reads a word at a time. So it goes very
Wow.
slowly for him and he gets frustrated. But he
Mm.
loves fiction, he loves reading. And he said that he messaged me this week and said he was deleting his social media account. And he was just letting me know so that I didn't think that he blocked me or something, which was altogether possible. But he said, I'm just letting you know so that you can contact me by phone or anything if you need me for anything. And I just asked, well, why did you delete it? I'm thinking, ooh, there's some drama here. So, and what he said was he found that the social media, the dopamine release of constantly talking to people he cares about, reading about people he cares about, reading the jokes and the happiness and the memes and all this other stuff, that all that dopamine release was making it difficult for him to concentrate when he needed to concentrate. And so his ability to read had broken down even more.
Oh wow.
And so he quit that so that he could get, I guess, back in his body again. And this is a very agnostic person. But he was noticing that, hey, I'm not here, I'm not plugged in, I'm not concentrating and focusing, and so I'm gonna get rid of all of my social media so that I can better focus and not and have time to be bored sometimes,
Hmm.
so that
What a
my brain
concept.
recalibrates. And I was like, wow, that's really evolved. That's an interesting thought to make.
Talk about high vibration.
Yeah, I was impressed.
Yeah, yeah. For ADHD or ADD brain, it's a powerful thing. There's a guy on social media, so he should activate it again and go follow this guy, who will go out and say, follow the dopamine. He's a huge advocate for ADD and ADHD, and it's important to highlight doing things like that, like what your ex-husband has done. He's basically said, like, hey, my dopamine fix doesn't need to be this thing, but if I take it and conserve it where I can, I'll get a lot more done. Instead of just saying I'm broken and these are the things, and you know not really
Yeah.
finding success and change. So that's
My
awful.
daughter, my daughter she'll be 30 next year. And she has to cry. If she gets upset about something, she has to have a cry. Even if we talk through it and work all the way through to resolution, And consciously she knows, okay, I know what to do. We got this managed. She will still have to cry. And she says, I have to push the cortisol out of my eye holes so that
Ah,
I purge it out.
all right. I dig it.
Yeah. So she'll just have to do her cry, and then she can do whatever she needs to do. And I've watched her turn a day around like that. So she came in one day for class. I hope I'm not oversharing for her right now. I don't think she watches anyway, but anyway, she came in to teach a class, and she was struggling with something that had happened. And we went back to the kukui room and we talked it out. And she cried a little bit there. And she said, I just need to get the rest of it out and I'll be fine. And I was like, okay. So I left her alone for a little bit. In the meantime, one of her students came in and wanted to talk to her about something that they had talked about before. And so I kind of peck on the door and peeked in. And I was like, hey, you know, this person's here. They want to talk to you about this. And she's like, oh, yeah. And she wipes her eyes and she comes out. She's just dialed in. I was like, wow. And I even told her, you know, when I feel as bad as you did, it takes me a good 24 hours to recalibrate and turn that train around. Once, if it's roaring toward the depression station, man, you know,
Yep.
I got to slow it down, talk to the conductor, put on
Yeah.
the brakes.
That must be a Virgo thing, because I mean, my poor partner is like, all right, well, you got through it. And I'm like, no, still recovering. Give me a minute.
Do not make eye contact.
Still in full ogre mode. You know,
And
one
that's
of
when
the
they say the dumbest shit, like, are you on your, you know, what did you
would it
say?
matter?
Yes, I am, but that is irrelevant.
Well, you know, one of the trends that was part of this whole vibrational journey, right, was this consideration for being human. You know, there are a lot of people trying to outrun their humanness, and here we had two very powerful examples of what it means to both raise your vibration and do the human thing. You know, if you need to push out the cortisol, I think I'm going to start, there's cortisol coming out of my eye. Like, I just love that phrasing. Instead of saying crap,
Like it's a
I don't feel
transmission
weak anymore.
leaking, you know. This is where the cortisol leaks from. I agree
Right.
with her 100%.
But she was being very human in that moment, instead of saying, you know, I'm not going to cry, I'm going to hold it together for these students. She got to show up fully. There were no obstacles, there was no blockages, and she just got to fall apart. And I remember a couple days ago somebody saying, like, I just don't want to fall apart. And I said, but once you do that, you can pick up the pieces. You can bring yourself back together and go from there. Maybe you'll even figure out that there are pieces you don't want to pick up. So you just leave them on the floor. Somebody will come
Yeah.
by and sweep them up. You know, might be me. Lots of
For me, it
smudging.
always is you.
Aw.
Like, oh, look, here's part of Katrina. I better message her.
Aw. I feel
Did you
the
fall
same.
apart? I found part of you.
You
Yeah.
know,
And, you know, as far as outrunning our humanness, that's big in our field.
yeah.
And I see it on so many levels. I see people that are healers and people that are spiritual leaders. And I have fallen into this trap myself, which is, okay, so I'm here as a spiritual leader. I'm a healer. When I'm in crisis, where can they go? And if I can't manage my shit, why should anybody depend on me for their healing? And so there is this added pressure to manage your traumas really effectively. And it
Mhm.
doesn't necessarily get easier to manage traumas. No, however enlightened you might be, stuff still happens. And people often believe you're going to get to an enlightened place where you are so aligned and so in keeping with spirit that bad stuff doesn't happen to you. And that's just not true. Bad stuff is going to happen, and it becomes, okay, so how does this affect my spirituality, my quality of life? What am I going to do with these feelings? But the feelings are still there.
Absolutely. And it's not just the feelings, you become energetically responsible. So now, where ignorance was bliss before, you being in connection with that bad friend that uses you on a constant basis is going to have a deeper impact because you're spiritually aware. The universe is going to go, oh, now you know better. And
Mm,
so what are you going to do about it? There's no sense of punishment by any means, but a sense of balance. If you're going to maintain an imbalance, you're going to pay for it. Usually in your energy, or usually in your time, or your resources, one thing or another. I had somebody come to me this week who was saying that, they want more abundance. And I said, well, according to everything that we've looked at, the obstacle is your spouse. And they were like, no, no. And then they listed off like all the ways their spouse stands in the way. And I was like, okay. Well,
well,
you
and you
know,
want
uh,
abundance of what?
exactly.
You got to
Exactly.
be really specific.
You've got an abundance of blockages right now.
Right.
What else do you want?
Congratulations, you've made it to abundance.
Right.
And you're right about people not wanting to look at the obvious answers. And one of the things I tell my students, and you know this well, Dahlia, is that when you step on the healer's path and you commit to that and you say, this is my identity, this is who I am, and you're a healer, whether you're in day one of training or you're a master healer, you're still a healer. And you just get to wear that robe. As soon as you put on that robe, you are giving the universe permission to rearrange your life and get rid of anything that doesn't look like a healer anymore. And I would go so far as to say that anytime you seek alignment and you seek balance and you seek that high vibrational life, you also are giving the universe permission to say, well, this is low vibing, so watch how fast we get rid of this. And you're talking about that friend that's a user, or that spouse that's the blockage, or whatever is holding you back. Once you step on this path, you have to release those attachments
Hmm.
willingly, or it's going to lower your vibration, because things will keep happening to demonstrate to you that this is a bad connection for you. It's not that that's a bad person, it's that
Right.
it affects you in such a way that it lowers your vibration. Somebody else might do great with it.
And it might look like you put your cares on the back burner for another person, or, you start meditating, but then, that person derails you in one way or another. You can feel their judgments from a distance. It doesn't have to be overt. It can be covert. And this brought up, the spiritual narcissism piece, the trend that is being seen out there. So we talked in the beginning of the show about the validation piece, and what some people are doing with the validation is they're taking their their qualities and creating a standard for others to step up to, or a pedestal to step onto. Oh, well, if you're not doing this, then I just can't be around you. And it's one thing to protect yourself. We have talked about that time again. It's entirely another for it to become a place of judgment, for you not wanting to face discomfort. I would say it's more about that. And even with the narcissism piece, I had to remind, uh, the conversation, within the conversation that I was having, I had to remind this person, we all are narcissistic on some level. Psychology is finally coming out to say, like, there's a spectrum here that we're dealing with. And so just because your narcissism doesn't cause you dysfunction or to cause harm to another person, it will come out in other ways. And so far be it for you to judge, that narcissistic personality playing out spiritually, but be aware of it. It's important to have presence for what's going on, rather than saying, oh, well, is there something wrong with me because this person has said, you know that I wasn't on their level or that my vibration was bad. No, but don't dive into discrediting them, because then your narcissism is coming out. Sense of
That's so
importance is what
true.
I mean, right?
Absolutely. That is 100% true. And what we have to look at, and I've said this forever, for decades, how do we feel when we're walking away from a person? When we have spent time with that person, or we're hanging up from the Zoom call, or whatever it might be, how are we vibrating and how are we feeling? Now, I got to be honest, every time I talk to Dahlia, every time we have one of these broadcasts, I come away from it feeling excited and up there
Same.
and happier and more me, more myself. I feel validated, I feel connected, and I feel like I have faith in humans again. um, and that's how I define our relationship. If I'm having a relationship with somebody and I come away feeling really tired and drained, or as though I'm just constantly judged, or I
Mm,
just, no matter what I do, I can't live up to the standard that they're setting for me, then that's where I either need to look at myself, as you were saying, not necessarily in a negative way, but saying, do I need to step up my game? Is there something here I need to learn regarding allowing somebody else's feelings to define me or affect how
mm,
I feel about myself? Or is it truly that this is some nagging little connection that isn't healthy for me? That I'll be doing fine, I'm vibing, I'm feeling aligned, and this is the stone that my wheel keeps rolling over.
mm,
And then we have to look at distancing. And I'm a big fan of that, of, hey, this isn't a bad person, but there's something in this connection that isn't allowing me to be my best self. Now,
absolutely.
is it that they're bringing up something you should look at and you're not? Or is it that they are just constantly trying to refine you and turn you into something else, or have unspoken expectations of you? That's a fine line, and you have to be super self-aware to have that conversation with yourself.
And that awareness comes with time and practice. Um, One thing that seems maybe obvious, like if you've had Olympia or a healing session, or something that you trust to get you back on track, and somebody's given you that conversation, like, hey, your vibration is off now, and you know maybe when you come back to my level we can talk again. I say that's
Whoa!
probably something to walk away
Whoa!
from.
Yeah,
It's probably
yeah.
a good moment to laugh and then say, okay, have a nice life or whatever it is, because that's heavy, and that's essentially the conversation that was being had, was,
Wow, wow.
yeah,
Well,
come
and
back to my
it's
level.
okay to say you are absolutely right. I am not on your level at all. So maybe I shouldn't be spending time with
Darn, I
you.
have to grow.
I'm gonna go to my grow hole and consider what you said.
Right. And we're in the perfect timing for it, and I keep, I guess, bringing up Mercury retrograde until we get the fuck out of it.
Yeah, right, right on. Yeah,
Because this has been,
yeah,
this has been a bit of growth in this season. I know for
it
me,
has.
as well as others I've come across. But this, again, this is this is a great point to say. It's not necessarily that your vibration is low, just that are having a different experience, and you can have
Hmm.
the ebbs and flows and not feel like, okay, well, I must need to take the spiritual bath and purge my friends and things. I mean, have
Hmm.
awareness. If you need to do that, do that, but
Yeah,
don't look for the
absolutely.
the tools. Use the tools as needed rather than in obligation because of what somebody else said.
I agree. And I would use the example of my Meniere's disease. I have a frequency that I can't hear. And
Mm,
unfortunately, that frequency is one of the common tones of a voice on the telephone. So it's really hard for me to hear on the phone. I can hear
Wow.
on computer, I can hear in person if the person's in the room with me and I have the opportunity to, you know, masks are tough for me, but if I can see their mouth,
Mm.
and if they're facing me and the sound is coming my way, I hear fine. But if Eric is a room or two away from me and he yells something to me, it's just going to sound like a mass of sounds. And on the phone, a lot of times it sounds like a mass of sounds, which is why I try like hell to avoid answering the phone at the shop, because I have to really make a tense face and, you know, really predict what they're saying, basically, based on the little
Interesting.
bits that I catch. So, my point is, it doesn't mean the person talking to me isn't saying something of value. It means I can't
Mm.
hear the frequency on which they're speaking. And on a radio, you know, there can be all kinds of valuable things going on a radio. I can only hear the frequency and the station to which I'm dialed. And I think it's the same thing spiritually. You know, our inability to connect with somebody spiritually doesn't mean they're wrong and I'm right, or vice versa. It just means we're not tuning into the same space where we can be heard and communicate effectively. And one of the great things about retrograde that you mentioned, Mercury retrograde specifically, is it's an opportunity to do all the REs, you know, retrograde. And so we rethink, we revisit, we reconsider, we go back and reattune. We look at all of the things going on and just double check. I think it's the Seven of Pentacles, where the guy is leaning against the hoe, and he's got this bush of pentacles, and he's looking back on his work. If I
Yep.
got the right card, I think I did. But
You did.
what what's happened is, you know, he's been working, and anybody who's worked in a big garden knows you go in with the hoe and you scratch out all the weeds, or you make a line to plant the seeds in with the hoe. And then once you get further down, you got to stop and look back and check your work and make sure the line is nice and long and straight, and that you got a nice burrow there that's got berms on the sides that you can push over the seeds once they're planted. And that's what Mercury retrograde is. It's time to stop your work and look back and see what is it in your life that you need to reconsider, what needs
Mm.
retooling, and just make sure you're getting it right, and just don't move forward with anything. People get all freaked out. Oh, I can't sign for my house during this time, or I can't take a job during this time. And you can, but it is a time of pause rather
Yeah.
than a time of moving forward. I love that nature has created these spaces like winter where we're supposed to pause and not just be on constant output, 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 output.
You know, what you bring to mind when you talk about not, people getting freaked out about starting something new during a Mercury retrograde. So I opened my shop during a Mercury retrograde, actually, completely knowingly. I was like, well, they've told me we have to sign. Like, I don't have an option here. But it almost seems now the clarity that you're bringing to this conversation is it's less about what's going on around you and more about you. That Mercury retrograde is more a time of easy distractions. And so the issue is that you're not looking at your work, that you're distracted by something else. And so therefore you miss something. And that's the
Mm-hmm.
encouragement to not
Right.
start something new. All
Mm-hmm.
right. So we learned today. Thank you,
Well, and
Katrina.
you know, most of the time when we have the things that are classic to Mercury retrograde, it's going to be things like missed appointments. It's going to be things like miscommunications about that email that didn't go out, about writing that isn't succinct, different things that involve confusion in conversation, or the relaying of messages, or setting up of meetings and that sort of thing. And just to your point, those things aren't caused by Mercury retrograde, they're caused by carelessness.
Yep.
And so we can, blame it on Mercury retrograde. No, blame it on your damn clock not going off. And why did your clock not go off? You know,
Because you didn't set
because
it
you
right.
set it for PM instead of AM, you know, or whatever it might be. And it is that distraction of our brains trying to go into reverse and look at things from the past instead of things in the future. So yeah, it's not that you can't do new things. It's just that it's going to be more challenging, and you've got to be super focused, which means, guess what? take a cold shower, get back in your body.
And there goes your vibration right back up.
Yep, there you go.
Be as present as possible. Oh my goodness. What a great tool we just gained. I hope our audience members gain the same, because I know you know, it's easy to get caught up in the madness of what people say, and you're like, okay, well, do I want to start something new, and to question it and all of that. And of course, you know, the doubts come when electronics break, or you know, haphazard things happen, and you can ask yourself, is this happening now, or did I miss something when I wasn't present? Like, what a powerful tool to get us through these moments. Am I,
Mhm.
you know, uh, just briefly, like, we tend to see, and Katrina saw a little bit, you know, reflecting on exes. Is that person a person to go back to, or are you just not being present to the fact that they still haven't changed? You know?
There's
So,
so many reasons people go back to exes. So many reasons. The devil, you know, being better than the one you didn't. Maybe you left
yeah.
somebody for good reasons. You get out there and have some bad experiences with other people and start thinking, maybe that wasn't so bad. And so you try to get back in there. Some people don't recognize why they want back, but I can see it on them that what they really want is to get the person back so that the relationship ends on their terms. So they were
Interesting.
dumped. They were dumped. Oh my gosh, I've got to have this person back, when they don't actually want that person. They just, number one, want
Mm,
that person to hear them out. Number two, want to end that relationship themselves rather than being dumped. And number three, the most common reason I think is that people glamorize the past relationship, and they really, truly don't remember how bad it was or how annoying that was. When I remarried my second husband, he was coming back from, or excuse me, my first husband, who became my second husband. This is not Eric. He came back from Japan. He had been in Japan for, I think, a 2-year tour. And he
mhm.
was coming back, and we decided to get married again when he came back. And we'd been divorced for all this time that he was in Japan. And I was so excited because all I'd done is wait for my husband to come back. We'd been married a really long time. And I was just saying, just let my husband come back. And he did. And he was excited to get married again within 24 hours. I mean, we had orders to Holloman Air Force Base. We were all packed up. We weren't even in the fucking car to leave. And I was like, oh my God, this was why. Right here was why. And sure enough, you know, within 2.5 years, he had left me for somebody else. We were divorced.
Oh,
And man, it just, I'm telling you, when you get them back, there's that feeling of power of, oh, thank God, my prayers have been answered. Oh, thank God you are here. Oh my God, why the hell did I do this? Because, man,
I can definitely empathize. I did that on and off for 10 years. We'd always go, hey, why did we break up again? And then within 3 days, it got down to 3 days. It'd be day one, okay, we're good. Day two, what is this? Day three, I'm gonna strangle this person. You know, I don't want to
yeah.
go to jail, but I might. Yeah, it's a wild journey. You know, oh, is this fated because they're always around whenever I have an issue with a partner, or, you know, whenever I have a breakup, they show up. No, no, you sent for
Mm-hmm.
them. Your energy sent for them. And
I
that's
have
fine.
this I have this history with them, and they understand me better than anything. They've known me since high school, and they've changed. I know they've changed.
And isn't it interesting that that concept of change is there until you enter back into the relationship with them? And it's because you were not the catalyst for change. They revert back to who they
Mm-hmm.
were
Right,
because that's who they knew how to be with you. They did
right.
not grow, they just learned how to be different without you. And now you're
Are
back. And
you
now they don't
are
have to do
you a
that.
37-year-old woman when you walk into your mama's kitchen? You are not. You are 12. You know,
Yep.
because that's the dynamic. And that's the same thing what you're talking about. You set up a dynamic with a partner. And I promise you, without exception, no matter how much you change, when you get back with that ex, you will go back to the worst version of yourself. And so will
Mm.
they.
Yep.
You just
Then
will.
the longer you guys had together, the more likely that will happen.
I've
So,
seen people that split up when they were teens or in their 20s. They get back together in their 50s. They do fine. They had enough time apart. They were still becoming who they were going to be when they were together before.
mhm.
And maybe their families moved apart or whatever it might be. And so that opportunity to continue wasn't there. I've seen that be successful. But when we have two consenting adults that get together for any length of time and live, if you live together, if you have a family together, or if you are married, that's what I'm talking about. And then you break up and you get back. I'm not talking about you dated a few times and, or you were super young. But oh no, I swear to you, there's very few times I'll give you absolutes. This is a time I'll give you an absolute.
So regarding, high vibration, low vibration, this is clearly a vibrational shift, right? Like this isn't necessarily an issue of, oh, low vibrations rule out, but you're going to shift into the negative version of you, and nobody wants that. And again, if you're taking that spiritual path, healer or otherwise, you've said, I have some spirituality in my life and I'm choosing to exercise it. If you switch, what comes with it? I mean, you're gonna start bringing in
Mm-hmm.
circumstances, because I think a lot of people forget the subconscious programming that happens. Like, I don't know if you've ever had this experience, Katrina, where there was an appointment that you were just like, I don't know if I'm up for this. Like, I'm present, I could do it, but I don't know, something's just off. And you go to take it, and then all of a sudden they cancel.
Yes,
I think
yes.
I think
Yep.
that's of like
That
a vibrational response.
I do.
And the same thing can happen in partnership. You go to take it and something's off, and so then what
Mm-hmm.
happens? The fights come, the shifts take place, and then things dissolve. It's the
That's
same
so
thing with
true.
relationships, life, opportunities. So you said that's happened to you.
Oh yes. Oh yes. The thing about somebody canceling after you psyched yourself up for an appointment, you're like, and then you're all dressed up and nowhere to go. You know. Oh yes, I absolutely. It's as though the universe wants to see you willing to commit to something that you don't want to do.
Mm.
And they're like, okay, well, you don't have to jump off this cliff. It's like in the Bible where God told Isaac or Jacob to go to take his favorite son up to the mountain and sacrifice him. And he wrestled with it, and Jacob was finally like, okay, kid, here we go, going on a walk. And at the last minute, when he's going to kill his son, God provides a ram for him to do instead. I just wanted to see if you were going to do it.
Right. Dude, did
What?
you think I was really good at
Okay. And
Right.
with the X thing, I've got to tell y'all, what it reminds me of is when somebody gets really super clean and sober and they're vibing high. Don't go back to your ex who's an alcoholic. Don't go back to the ex that you shot up with. Don't go back to the ex that you pop pills with, because even if they're clean, you will talk each other into doing it.
Absolutely. Time and
Yeah.
again. It's a they even say in like AA groups not to get into a relationship with somebody in the group for that reason.
Mm-hmm. And no
Um, you
relationship for something like what, a year? Is
yeah,
it
something
that you're
like that.
sober? Yeah. So, and I'm not saying that it's all about drugs and alcohol. I'm saying that take your worst self, and that is the drugs and alcohol. So, no matter what you did that you were ashamed of in that relationship, that's going to be a strong, whether you've gotten over it or not, a strong power in that relationship, and you're just going to slide right back down into it.
We just talked about dopamine, and serotonin is another. brain chemical that causes a problem. And so, it may not be drugs and alcohol, but it may be the endorphins that you're feeling. It may be the
Mm-hmm.
rush. It may be the chase. It may be the, well, I've associated this person with stability. It may
Mm-hmm.
be, when I was with them, I was much more competitive and motivated. It may be a lot of things, but there's an addictive quality to what's happening, you know? And like you
Also,
said, the devil you know.
just because they're good for you doesn't mean you're good for them. So if you're doing all
Um,
this magic work to bring somebody back because they were the last time you felt safe, the last time you felt safe, stable, the last time you felt loved, and you want to bring them back, that doesn't mean that you're good in their life right now. And if you're trying to
mm,
magically influence that, you could be magically influencing their downfall because you are their alcohol, you are their drug, you're a place they don't need to go anymore. No
yeah,
matter how much you love them, you could be bad for them. And it's not love if you want to pull that person down with some sort of magical manipulation.
right. And maybe you were just supposed to get them to a certain point and then ship off, you know?
Yeah.
Um, soul contracts. All of these things shift our vibration from high to low, and they allow us to be human. And that was the point. That was the funness of this conversation is go on, have fun with life. You know,
Yeah.
what are these restrictions really doing for you? Are they giving you a high vibration? Or are they giving you an opportunity to put on a badge and say, I don't do that anymore?
All
Um,
those rules, they're not a list where you got to tick all the boxes
right, right. Just
and do
live.
what
My
every
God.
YouTube video or meme tells you to do to be high vibing. And being high vibing doesn't mean the exclusion of a human experience, a human life.
Right,
We have to be able to do both. It doesn't mean that because you're high of a high vibration that you should never be present, that you should never be bawdy, that you should never be silly. You got to get in
right.
there and live that life.
I remember thinking I had to be in a relationship with another magical person to, we're gonna high vibe this thing out. And it's not that. You can get a relationship with a magical person and have it not be a
Mm-hmm.
stable vibration, let alone considering high. So I'm very happy with my
Yeah.
muggle means, and people should embrace that, you know. Um, it's it's not a race, guys. You had given a great was it Rumi quote?
Oh, Ram Dass, Ram
Ram
Dass.
Dass.
We're all just walking each other home,
Yeah,
and it's not a race
vibrating
home.
and it's not a race, guys.
Not a
So
race.
what I would love to see in the comment section would be how some of you guys operate in high vibration for yourself. Like, what's your personal take? Don't give me the wishy-washy metaphysical mumbo jumbo of, I sit with my quartz on my third eye. I mean, if you do that, that's beautiful. But there's got to be more. There's got to be something of substance there. And when we speak about these things, we get an opportunity to build in others. Like, wait a minute, that did raise my vibration, but nobody said it was possible. So I just thought I was doing something normal. Well, maybe open the door to something new, but have fun doing it. Because again, like Katrina said, and like Ram Dass said, we're all walking each other home.
So
So
let's start, Dahlia. What do you do? If
what?
you're feeling like you need to raise your vibration, what do you do?
Oh, there's so many things. Give me a second. I will usually go to my playlist and just sing as loudly as possible. And my
Hmm.
playlist is a compilation of 90s music, 80s music, trap music. There's a lot of stuff in there that people probably would not think is high vibration, but the point is that I sing and I dance and I just move. Movement is really important for me. So that's how I do it. I just get really silly, or I go and I tickle my children. That also raises my vibration. Their giggles. So, what about you, Katrina?
I tickle my adult children. Not really. They would likely be opposed to that. You know, I'm very much like Delina in that if I have a good cry, I usually will feel better, but it's gotten increasingly harder for me to cry, which is
Hmm.
interesting because I spent years where I cried at the drop of a hat. Anything made me cry. And for the last, I would say 3 or 4 years, it's harder and harder for me to cry. And it
Hmm.
just, I don't know if it's a physical thing or a chemical thing or what, or if all my tears are just gone because there were a lot of things to cry about.
Oh.
Another thing that really helps me is, so much of what I do is about communication and
Mm.
feeling heard. And so I'll find somebody I really value to hold space with me and spend that time sharing what they think and getting another opinion and trying to see if there's something I'm not seeing. I've learned through life, unfortunately, not to trust my take on my own life and my own behavior and my own
Hmm.
impressions about myself. And so I'll
Right.
get with somebody that I know is going to pull my card or will be very honest with me. I've got you, I've got Nicole. They are my two biggies that I really will sit with.
Oh.
And another thing I do is there is an oil, an incense, both from a company that used to be called Airs Botanical. They are now called shit. They're not called shit, but the name is leaving me. I'll think of it. Uh, it's in Canada, but it's what used to be Airs, and it's Birch Bay, I think, Birch Bay.
Okay.
But the scent is Dragon Cloud. And
Hmm.
that was a scent that one of my first meditation facilitators used to use. And this has been, we're talking 35 years ago, probably. Um, and that smell is really good about purifying me and getting me back to my core. I lost Dahlia. We lost Dahlia. I think she'll be back. Hold on. Give us a minute. She's coming back. Where's Dahlia? Anyway, I'll keep juggling. That brings me back to my core. Hi, there she is. Hi, welcome back. Anyway, Dragon Cloud brings me back to my core magical self, and it's a very specific scent. I have never seen it duplicated anywhere else. I have called the company and gotten the recipe. I have been unable to duplicate it. Um, and so that works for me. And of all things, talk about a super predictable answer. Anya Honorico Flow. When I listen to that album, I
Oh.
really get high in my spiritual self again, and I don't know why. So those two things are really helpful. Drumming gets me really excited and motivated if I have a lot of drummers around me. But just because I'm having a low vibe day doesn't mean I can summon up a dozen drummers to, okay, all y'all's,
Give me
Mama's
time. I'm
sad.
gonna move to California. I'm gonna be like, all right,
Start
Katrina.
drumming. Yes, boom, boom, boom. So that's kind of, those are my go-tos. And I've got to be honest, one of the things I'm working against as of late is that my greatest place of being in my body and super comfortable and vibing really high is when I would eat. Eating delicious
Mm.
foods, really palatable, comforting foods, helps me get back in my body, helps me to really believe there's joy and happiness and satisfaction and nurturing in the world. And that isn't healthy for me because I do so much that involves other people's energy and getting into other people's mess and dealing with other people's things, that I want to do that all the time. And so I've had
Mm.
to try to cut that off. So
That's a
those are
hard one to
my
break.
ways. Yes,
That
it's
last
very
one
hard.
is intense, and it brought to my mind one of the things that I actually despise, but when I drink it, it it brings me to a high vibration place just because of where it was associated. So this my shop used to have cacao ceremonies that were hosted by two
Hmm.
amazing people. They'd come in, they'd bring the cacao, they'd tell the stories, and it was amazing. But cacao, like real cacao, is bitter, and
It's
I
so
am a
gross.
sweet person. Right.
It's
And
so
so
bitter. Yeah.
every single time they'd make it, they did an exquisite job making it, and I'm just strange. And so I would take it and I'd be like, it's gonna happen, it's gonna happen. And every single time it was awful. But over 2020 and 2021, there were a couple of occasions where I would drink it on my own, and it was just about the memories. It was not about the taste.
Mm-hmm.
And it's so interesting what memories will do with us, as far as like you were making some associations with scents as well. Um, like I know there's a Ralph Lauren cologne. I'm not a huge fan of him as a person or a company, but some of my favorite people used to wear it, and when I smell it, I'm just like instantly like,
Mm-hmm.
wait, man, I think I was like 10 or 11, and this was happening, and
Mm-hmm.
life was easy, and I'm like, yes.
I hate when
So
I'm in line at a bank or something and somebody's wearing a cologne of an old boyfriend or, some really, um, you know, triggering memory that's positive. And you almost want to connect with the person, the stranger that's wearing that and be like, hi, remember me?
right.
Like
Can we talk a minute? I
calling
need to know about
security.
you.
Yeah, and one of the things, speaking of feeling, is Eric does sweat lodge ceremonies. He was trained in the Anipi style of sweat lodge by a Chippewa
Oh,
elder,
cool.
and he's done this for 25 years that we've been together. And this is the first place, this new rental place that we moved into in September, is the first place we haven't been able to do that.
Hmm.
And so I haven't had a sweat lodge in months and months and months and months. And when I went to the gym a couple days ago, Eric said, you should just go into the steam room and that'll help you not be sore, because we'd played like 30 minutes of racquetball. And so I went in the steam room and it was that same feeling. And I was like, oh my God, here it is.
Ah,
And
high
I actually,
vibrations.
and I stayed in there too long. And
Oh
my
no.
hands were starting to tingle a little bit, and I'm like, I should probably go. And I didn't want to leave. Like the steam room was going to disappear when I walked out of it. And this woman came in, and I had this feeling, like, because I was so super open, and I was like, it was a young girl, probably in her early 20s. And I was like, I need to tell, like, I totally was going to Long Island medium attack her, because I was thinking, she's going to have such a great day today, and tomorrow's going to be even better. I want to tell her that because she's not sure of that. And so I started to reach out to her, but I decided I was going to wait till I was leaving, just in case it went sideways. I didn't want to have to sit there all awkward with her or anything.
Right.
So as I
Counsel
was,
her through it.
right. And we both had on masks, because it's a steam room, like breeding ground. So we go in there, and I'm about to open the door to leave. And I turned around and looked at her, and I just decided to throw out the bait. And I was like, blessings to you. And she took off her mask and looked at me, and she said something to indicate I don't speak English. And I was like,
Oh.
okay. I'll just
Bullet
keep my high
dodge.
vibe to myself.
Yes, yes.
So yeah.
You know, I'm glad you said that. There are occasions, I was having this discussion with my partner, there are occasions where I feel compelled but don't want to, right? Because we've talked about energy assault and stuff like that. So I'm like, I'll kind of
Yeah.
hold back. But sometimes conversations will go on, or they'll go longer with people who are willing to have them.
Yes.
And my partner was like, you hate doing that. And I was like, well, I do and I don't, right? Like, what's going on? And I'm recognizing through you, it's a high vibration moment. And I'm just like, I gotta
Yeah.
share the high vibes.
Right. Right. It's kind of like when water's boiling, that steam's got to come out,
Right. Right. Oh, and we have another share here from Sarah. Her vibration level raises when it is needed for a task,
Mm-hmm.
or if she's when she's been asked by another, by healing and channeling. Oh yeah, I get that. I've definitely
Mm-hmm.
had that space too. I can definitely identify that. Another weird high vibration moment, when I get in my car, when I've shut out everything else and I just sit in my car.
Mm-hmm.
I'll sit in my car for hours, just sit there. Or when I get under the weighted blanket, oh my God, at the end of my day, and I'm just like,
Mm-hmm.
and it's crushing my body. I
Yeah.
absolutely love my weighted blanket, and it sends my vibration right back up.
Absolutely. And you know what's sad is that I vibe the highest when I'm alone.
Yeah.
I really, really do. So like, we're working with people's energy all day here at the shop, just people,
Yeah.
people. And when I'm not dealing with people on the floor, I'm dealing with people by email or people, on the phone or whatever, people's energy through candles, people's energy through the healing. It's always other people's energy. OPE, OPE, OPE. So, and then you go to the grocery store and there's people and there's people and there's people. So there's always people. So having my energy just be contained in me
Yep.
is one of my high vibration moments. And when I sleep with Eric, he and I have like this tether. So we're always super engaged. And so the intimacy of sleeping together, I can feel the energy flow. And so the first time we slept in this house that we live in now, we were on a bed that was actually a little too small for us. And so he was uncomfortable. He's kind of flopping, and I can just feel the frustration of his energy over here, like right up beside me. And I'm kind of hanging off the edge. And I finally went, fuck this, went out to the car in the garage. I seriously took my binky and my pillow, and I slept in the car, and I slept like a bear. I slept so good because I'm just in my own little space. And what sucks is you're high vibing and nobody knows but you. So you can't be like, check me out, because then the bubble's broken.
So realize through our sharing here that your high vibration moment can look like anything. It can look like touching the cover of a really good book. There's some books I've noticed that have been printed with almost like a silky, velvety feel to them. And I grab it and I'm like, oh, book feel. And my vibration starts to go like this. And then I don't read the book. That's what happens. Vibration's too high to read the book. But whatever it is for you, our audience members, we thank you for sharing, and we look forward to reading more on your comments of that. And remember, just play, have fun. You don't have to do all the things. Do what works for you. This has been an awesome time. Thank you for the sharing and the learning, Katrina. Again, I learned a lot about Mercury Retrograde today. I'm very excited. And of course, excited to share another moment with you and our lovely audience members. So until next time, we will catch you guys on Crossroads of Cognizance. Have a great night, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Bye.